It's Missing Real with Mike Darrigo. Khan, if it's me you want, I'll have myself beamed aboard. Spare my crew. I make you a counter-proposal, Admiral. I'll agree to your terms if, in addition to yourself, you hand over to me all data and materials on the project known as Missing Real. Missing Real? What's that? Don't insult my intelligence, Kirk. People who listen to Missing Real clearly have no intelligence, Khan. Indeed. Thank you, Spock, for the compliment. Damn. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Missing Real. Today's episode is a very special one because I'm going to just lump together a whole bunch of movies and pay tribute to the classic crew films of Star Trek. Yeah, it's the other Star thing that isn't about wars. It's a geekier version, and it's always a battle between all the nerds, like the Star Trek people, the Star Wars people. It's like the Beatles and the Stones. You know, just get over it, people. It's all fun. It's all sci-fi. Some of it just requires you to use your brain a bit more. None of it requires you to use your penis, but it's okay. We'll get into that too. Let's just move on to the sci-fi and the coolness of it all. It's great. Okay, so you all know what Star Trek is, I guess. That's the one with Dr. Spock, right? Most people would ask. Yeah, anyway, fuck you. The original Star Trek aired on television from 66 to 69. Haha, get it? And it was canceled unceremoniously after 3 seasons. And I think 79 episodes, right? You know, correct me if I'm wrong, geeks. But it was horrible because there was so much demand for Star Trek, and the studio didn't know shit about, you know, all the future millions of dollars to be made in franchising and merchandising and catchphrases and things. And so then, some years later, like in the late 70s, there was supposed to be some sort of a Phase 2 Star Trek television show starring the original crew. But instead, Paramount, the studio, decided, let's throw it on the big screen, make a movie out of it, you know, fill some seats, sell some popcorn, blow a big budget on it, and a lot of special effects and stuff. So that's what you got. So 1979, when I was pretty young, actually, you know, I really didn't go see this movie. We ended up with Star Trek The Motion Picture. And it's pretty accurately titled because it is basically a picture and it moves. And that's about all you're looking at for 2.5 hours. Boring. It's slow. It's like a snail's pace kind of a film. So I'm kind of glad I missed it. Yeah, it is glacially paced. That's the phrase we like to use, glacially paced. And I probably wouldn't have the attention span. I mean, just certain sequences just go on and on and on forever. It's like the director fell asleep and never realized he had to yell cut at any point in the movie. The director was Robert Wise, who I had never heard of, but he'd done some famous sci-fi stuff like The Day the Earth Stood Still, kind of like watching this movie. Yeah, that's pretty apt. And or The Andromeda Strain. You know, which this movie was like a strain on your patience. Good choice of director there. But yeah, I'd never seen any Star Trek stuff back then. I watched a couple episodes on TV. I thought it was cool because I saw like there was some episode with these jellyfish things that fly off the ceiling and slap onto Spock's back and mess up his head and gets all fucked up and everything. I was like, wow, this is cool, man. And every time I walked through like an archway or a door, I always looked up to make sure none of those little jellyfish things were hanging there. They would like fly off on a string, like somebody with a fishing rod was like flying it around. But those were the awesomest special effects back in the day, you know. But, you know, I watched Star Trek in syndication, okay? I'm not quite that old, okay? But I am, you know, I'm up there in the years, okay? So anyways, yeah, Robert Wise directs Star Trek The Motion Picture. And, I mean, in the whole Star Trek canon of things, it's still important because, you know, it brought back the crew and it had a great score, Jerry Goldsmith, and the main theme, of course, would be used over and over and over again for Star Trek The Next Generation after a point which, you know, you might get sick of it. But back, you know, in 1979, that was the theme for Star Trek's first movie. And you got the cast, everybody's there, they have to collect everyone. It's like, you know, let's pick up Spock. Let's get McCoy to step into the transport even though he hates these things. I don't want my molecules scrambled around, reassembled. He's all crotchety just like he was on the show. He's great. And the cool thing about Star Trek The Motion Picture, if you have the patience for it, is the full extended cut where you get a lot more scenes and character development because the one that hit the theaters was pretty lame. It was just like a really long exercise in just like, well, there's like 2 scenes, right? One scene, which is like the first hour, they're showing you the outside of the Enterprise, all right? Making sure there's no dents in it, everything's good, you got all the little rivets in place, good, all right, let's fly. And then the second half is just them flying into a whole bunch of colorful, psychedelic, tie-dye, t-shirt, bullshit, Flash Gordon-y special effects stuff, and they're just like drifting through very, very, very slowly until they finally get to the end and find out what the hell this thing is inside this cloud that just turns out to be the Voyager probe or satellite, which is called V'ger because somebody smudged the letters. This is the big reveal, and I'm real sorry about the spoiler, folks, but come on, man. You had like 40 years to watch the damn thing already. Give me a break, all right? So that's Star Trek the Motion Picture. It has the crew, has a couple of extra extraneous characters, got this lame dude Decker, played by Stephen Collins, who has some friction with Kirk when he gets kicked off the captain's chair because he doesn't have the experience Kirk has. But the only other major character in this film was played by this lovely Indian actress, Persis Kambata. She was a model, and she was an actress, and she did a few movies here in the States, and she did a lot more like back in Bombay, but she was in Star Trek the Motion Picture with a shaved head. Very bold of her. Like the Sinead O'Connor of space. But then later on, she was in Nighthawks in 1981 as Shaka, who was like the accomplice to Rutger Hauer's terrorist Wolfgar. That was also a great role. But then, of course, her movie roles steadily declined after that when she appeared in Mega Force in 82, and then next year, Warrior of the Lost World. And her one shot at glory was that she was almost cast as Octopussy in the Bond film, but she lost out to Maud Adams. Oh well, but sadly she died just age 49 in 1998. She had some heart problems, and her last appearance here was in a 1993 Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. So, she had a very brief but pretty interesting career, and Star Trek the Motion Picture is her biggest U.S. film. I guess I'd rather be remembered for Nighthawks, personally, and way better movie. Okay, so Star Trek Motion Picture. All right, so let's wake everybody up. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, 1982. Now this one I went to see in the theaters. I think Dad took me and my sis to go see it. I really didn't know what the fuck was going on. I didn't know who Khan was, but I had seen Fantasy Island, so I knew Mr. Rourke, of course. And this is no Mr. Rourke, okay? This is Mr. Rourke with pecs. This is Mr. Rourke with long hair and an agenda to fuck with everybody. Nobody thought Ricardo Montalban could play a convincing villain at this time. You see, he was so suave, he was Mr. Rourke. But no, he's like busting out with his fucking chest and his long gray hair and all that shit. So the backstory, of course, with Wrath of Khan is an original series episode, Space Seed, where we first meet Khan. Kirk picks him up in his ship and finds all of his frozen cryogenic pals, and, he was like some prince, and he just wanted to take over the universe, and, eventually Kirk had to knock him down with a plastic wrench in the engine room there, and they had a big fight. It was really awesome, which kind of sucks, because Wrath of Khan, Shatner and Montalban never actually share a scene. They never meet some sort of a face-to-face between them, which would have been great. I would have loved that. But instead, they get to talk to each other over the TV, FaceTime, get the famous Kirk pissed off with his little CB. I love that shit. It's great. It's iconic, but he never meets him, But it's a great movie, right? Wrath of Khan, really ramps up the action. I think they sort of push Gene Roddenberry aside, right? Enough with all your nice. Let's blow some shit up. Let's have some violence. Let's stick some eels in Chekhov's ear and, make this thing crazy, right? So it's got a great score by James Horner. Very young. This was like his first major film. But James Horner, of course, one of my favorite composers also, did the music for Krull, did the music for Aliens. Then he started getting a little schmaltzy with Titanic later on, but, we forgive him for that. He was doing some incredible film scores back in the day, and Star Trek, ranks among his finest, so I love that. Also, in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, as one of Khan's sidekicks, is an actor I've always really loved since I was a kid, Judson Scott. Judson Scott is this blonde-haired dude who used to play The Phoenix, this TV show where this dude had an amulet, and he would, have these powers and things, and I just thought he was cool. I don't know why. I just like, The Phoenix. If you remember that show, good for you. That was cool. But Wrath of Khan, full of action, full of suspense, good cast. You got Paul Winfield as Captain Terrell, and Winfield would go on, of course, to play the Terminator, and he would be in an episode of The Next Generation in 1991, Darmok, where him and Picard can't understand each other, like Shaka when the walls fell. His eyes uncovered! So I love how so many people from the Star Trek films or the old show sort of cross over into different treks, and, they just pass between the series or the movies and they play different characters, or sometimes, of course, they reprise their classic characters, which is always great, or just a way to get viewership back up when things start sucking. So, great cast in Star Trek II. Kirstie Alley, she was great. She was the first incarnation of Lieutenant Saavik, and in the script, she was rumored to be a breed of Vulcan and Romulan, so she has a little more emotion than your typical Vulcan does. She sort of cries at the end, and, we know what happens at the end, right? We also have Merritt Buttrick, The unfortunately named Merritt Buttrick, an actor playing Kirk's son David. And Merritt Buttrick was on TV in Square Pegs, and later on in '88, he was also on a Next Generation episode along with Judson Scott. But he sadly died just a year later, 1989. He was only 29 years old. So, a lot of tragedies in the Star Trek family. Not everyone lives long and prospers, unfortunately, But going on with Trek 2, we still have everybody there. Everyone's good. Everyone's healthy. Everyone's alive. Leonard Nimoy, speaking of dying, Leonard Nimoy really didn't want to do this shit, but he said, all right, I'll do this if we could have a nice death for Spock. We want to kill off Spock. That was his plan, right? And all the way through this, there's leaks on the script. People were finding out, oh my God, Spock's gonna die. And, all the fans were getting pissed, and Leonard Nimoy was receiving death threats. Hello? Kill Leonard Nimoy. Of course Spock's not going to live, right, you idiot? So, what the fuck's wrong with people? Yeah, so Leonard Nimoy decided he wants to die in Star Trek 2. But towards the end of filming, they made these little secret loopholes, a little way to get out of the whole thing. And even the director, Nicholas Meyer, was a little bit pissed off about some additional scene at the end that kind of hints that maybe Spock's not gone. They soften the ending a little bit. Because you all know, Spoiler alert! That Spock dies at Star Trek 2, right? But he's in all the other Star Treks, so he doesn't really die, does he? So shut up. So this was the end of Star Trek 2. It was very, very emotional. James Horner's music, when Kirk is going down to find out that Spock has been exposed to all this radiation and shit, it's so tear-jerking, man. The fucking music, it gets me every time. Star Trek 2 has some very, very iconic scenes and stuff. It was the first film sequence shot entirely with CG, the Genesis demonstration, the Project Genesis torpedo when it launches into a dead planet and turns it into a nice lush forest with lakes and birds and flowers. That was cool. But that sequence, interestingly enough, I'm in the arcade, right, in the early 80s, playing a video game by Sega called Astron Belt, where you fly in a ship and you go over these mountains and terrain and all these things in space. And I see something that looks curiously familiar. Hey, that's Project Genesis. Yeah, because the footage that was shot for this, or that was created on a computer for Trek 2, was so cool that Sega used it in their very first Laserdisc arcade game. And this was also a video game that incorporated some shit from Battle Beyond the Stars and Message in Space, which is an Asian iteration of Star Wars. Considering that Star Wars was really based on Kurosawa stuff, I guess it's full circle, isn't it? So Spock sacrifices himself in Trek 2 at the end. And this scene, this really important scene, I consider it violated in 2013 when J.J. Abrams and friends did their Star Trek Into Darkness movie and have Khan return. And, they do their version of Khan, but they flip around the whole Spock death scene and they make it a Kirk death scene. And then they bring Kirk back with Khan's blood. And then Spock gets pissed off and he goes, Khan! Just like Kirk does in Trek 2. No, don't do that, man. You already pissed us off with the ending of Lost. How far must you go? Gosh. But yeah, the new Star Treks are pretty cool. I gotta give them that. But they do fuck up sometimes. They do jump the shark. Back then in the 80s, it was okay to be cheesy and stupid because that was the best they could do. But you guys now, you should know better. All right, so Nimoy wasn't the only one who wanted out of Star Trek. Even George Takei had to be talked into coming back as Sulu. So, he was just tired of steering. He probably wanted to do something better, like maybe run around with a sword or something like he did and maybe take Uhura captive. I don't know. Things like that. What else about Star Trek 2? Anything else? No, it was awesome, Khan was great. He sets off the bomb at the end and he does his final lines from Moby Dick, from hell's heart, I stab at thee. Moby Dick comes back a lot in Star Trek, as does Shakespeare. They're very literary when they use stuff. Even Les Miserables popped up in DS9. So, you have to be very well versed in the classics and the Bard and Broadway to dig Star Trek. Oh my God, all the musical numbers they would do on those later fucking tracks. Whatever, it's okay. God bless. You're very talented. You could sing and dance too. Great. So now we're moving on to 1984. Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. And of course they're going to find him, right? So, search for Spock. It could be just we're looking, and end of the movie, we didn't find him. And that would have pissed off the fans so much, and they would have thrown rocks at the screen. So Leonard Nimoy agreed to go back to Star Trek if he could direct Trek 3. So he does. And he turned out to be a pretty decent director. He also directed 3 Men and a Baby and some other stuff. He's pretty great behind the camera, and he has a lot of time off from wearing the ears, which I'm sure he was grateful for, although he probably had to wear a big headset instead. So he's directing, right? And we still have James Horner music, which is expanded and, just as lush and wonderful as in Star Trek 2, a little bit less militaristic, but, very elegiac, very, very sweeping score. James Horner was really killing it back then. Trek 3 is actually part of a 3-movie arc. You got 2, 3, and 4, which sort of tell a continuous story. If you get rid of all the other Star Trek movies, they still stand alone as a really nice trilogy. So this one here, of course, we have a few changes to the movie and the cast. We have a new Saavik. Kirstie Alley didn't want to come back and do Saavik. She thought she'd be typecast or something, but she should have stuck around. So instead we got Robin Curtis. She was a little bit bland. She was a little bit more like just straightforward, not very emotionally interesting, but she did have like a finger fuck with Spock in the middle of the movie. That was controversial, during his Pon farr whatever thing going on there. We also had the amazing Christopher Lloyd as the villain. Nimoy had seen him in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, of course, I'm sure we all have, and figured he'd be great for a wacky-ass Klingon guy, and of course we got him to be iconically and forever engraved in our memories as Doc Brown in Back to the Future, and Judge Doom, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and of course Iggy on Taxi. The guy's crazy. He was awesome. We loved Christopher Lloyd, so for him to be a Klingon, give me what I want, and I'll consider it. Doing his usual barking like a dog. He makes a perfect Klingon. Even though the Klingons had a dog, and the dog was like, hey man, tone it down. It was awesome. John Larroquette was a Klingon. Instead of being on Night Court, gets to fly around in space. That was cool. All right, so we have like a cool cast here. We have a little cameo by Grace Lee Whitney, Yeoman Rand from the old Star Trek, watching the ship fly in after it got battered in space battles with Khan. And then we have a new ship. We have the Excelsior, which everybody hated. All the fans hated the fucking Excelsior, man. It looked like a pregnant guppy is what everyone called it. The only cool thing about the Excelsior is that I think its first officer was played by Miguel Ferrer, so that's cool. But Scotty hates it. Scotty sabotages the shit. They fuck it up, and they can take the Enterprise back out to go look for Spock, but McCoy's got his marbles all scrambled because he had a mind meld with Spock, and it's a great setup, like this whole rescue plan operation that they come up with. Shatner's like trying to get the Enterprise back, give me back the Enterprise. And the Admiral's like, Jim, the Enterprise would never stand a pounding, and you know it. You stand for, logic and rationalization. Listen to me, Jim. I had a job. The word, sir, the word is no. We're therefore going anyway. Great acting by Shatner. And then Sulu. Everyone gets their moment, right? George Takei gets his don't call me tiny. And Scotty gets your level. Transporter. Thank you. Up your shaft. So he sabotages the Excelsior. Uhura gets a little feisty Mr. Adventure there, locks him in a closet. Everybody gets a little moment to shine, but then they leave Uhura behind for most of the movie. And we go for the search for Spock. And David is there with the new Saavik on Genesis, exploring the planet, and they find the tube that Spock was in, his little funeral coffin thing, and they find his robe, and there's this baby Vulcan on there, so everybody puts 2 and 2 together, like the Genesis wave has regenerated Captain Spock. So Spock's growing up again, and they gotta save him. Eventually, I don't know if he's just gonna stop aging at the age he gets to be when he's like Leonard Nimoy's age. Nobody ever explained that. What if he just keeps on aging and just dies, and they can never get him off Genesis, because the planet itself is aging rapidly. It's like an unstable matrix for all you science geeks. If it makes any sense what I'm saying, great. I'm happy to be of service. But anyway, the whole thing is to try to get Spock off the planet, and the Klingons keep getting in the way, and, Krug, which is Christopher Lloyd's Klingon guy, give me Genesis! Sorry, but they broke up 2 centuries ago. The Starfleet archives may have some Phil Collins for you. You Klingon bastard. He wants this Genesis thing, and everyone always wants fucking Genesis, but it's defective, so, just give it to him, man. Let the Klingons blow their own shit up. Have a nice big fist fight with Kirk and Krug while the planet's blowing up. It's pretty decent. Kirk does this flip, courtesy of a nice stunt double. He doesn't fight like he used to. He doesn't get his shirt ripped, not like the good old Kirk of yore. And finally, Krug is about to fall into the pit, and Kirk just softens up like, give me your hand! And he starts pulling Kirk in, and finally he's like, I have had enough of you! Drops his ass into the pit. Gets Spock, speaks a little Klingon that he just learns, and they get back up. It's good. And then they go to Vulcan, and he finally gets Spock's head scrambled back together. And, a few minutes of Leonard Nimoy on screen is so beautiful. It's so quiet. Like you would hear a pin drop in the theater. And he has his few lines, goes like, Sarek is there, Spock's dad talking to Kirk, because all throughout this adventure, a lot of bad shit happens. Let me go back for a bit and tell you, okay? You know, the Klingons captured David and Saavik and Spock, and they're going to kill one of them. It looks like they're going to kill Saavik. Like, okay, whatever, no great loss. So then David turns around, tries to be a fucking hero, and he can't fight a lick as good as his dad. Doesn't even try. He basically just grabs the Klingon and hugs him. Okay, a little cozy there. Klingon beats the shit out of him, stabs him. What's going on? Saavik tells him, Admiral, David is dead. Kirk falls on his ass. You Klingon bastard, you killed my son. You Klingon bastard, you've killed my son. You Klingon bastard. Great, Kirk, but no Oscar for you. There are 2 more prisoners down on the planet, Admiral. Do you want them killed too? All right, damn you. So Kirk is so pissed off, but he still tries to save crew. Because he has to be nice. I guess he has to be the hero. You have to do the noble thing, right? I'd rather just say, fuck that. Just kick the Klingon off into the fire. But Kirk's Kirk. You know, back in the 60s, he can get away with this crap. You know, have sex with a few different alien chicks along the way. But now this is like the new clean-cut, you know, PC Kirk, I guess. At least for a while, till a couple of movies later. Oh, yeah, they also blow up the Enterprise. Did I forget to tell you that? Right, that was a spoiler. But that leaked out. People knew the Enterprise was going to blow up. And even in the trailers for the movie, you see, you know, so join us for the final voyage of the Starship Enterprise. And you see the saucer section is on fire, like it just went through a barbecue. It's on fire. But, you know, Kirk has to blow up the Enterprise, but at least he takes a bunch of Klingons with it. They get off the ship, they blow it up. It's beautiful. More James Horner music, boo-hoo. Crying. A lot of people cried more for the loss of the Enterprise than they did for the death of Spock. But you know what? You could always replace both, as you'll soon see. All right, so now we got like no more Enterprise, so the crew has to take over the Klingon vessel, and they learn how to fly it and read Klingon pretty quickly. They land on Vulcan, all right, and then we got Sarek there. And we think Spock's going to be okay because he has like this lobotomy, this like spiritual, spatial, astral lobotomy thing with his priestess. And McCoy's like, I'm all right, Jim. And then Sarek is like, Kirk, I thank you. What you have done, what I've done, I had to do. But at what cost? Your ship, your son. You know what, Sarek? Shut the fuck up. Yeah, Kirk should be pissed, man. But, you know, if I hadn't, the cost would have been my soul. So Kirk's sharing his wisdom, and we finally see Spock turn around, looks at everybody, looks at Kirk, and he raises his eyebrow and goes, Jim, your name is Jim. Yes, Spock. Yeah, the needs of the many, blah, blah, blah. A very happy ending. It's beautiful. And then the adventure continues. And that's how it ends, right? It's great, man. Everybody's happy. So now we move on to 1986, Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. So the storyline is great because it really does pick up exactly where Trek 3 leaves off. You know, Spock is getting re-educated. He has to, you know, earn some more credits from the Vulcan Academy. And they have to refit the bird of prey that they stole to get back to Earth. And they figure, okay, let's go back to Earth, and we'll probably get shot down because it's an enemy vessel, but we'll figure it out as we go. And we have Leonard Nimoy one more time in the director's chair. But it's a little different this time. It has a totally different feel to it. It has a different composer, Leonard Rosenman. Now, the music in Trek 4 is a whole lot more, say, Christmassy than other Star Trek movies. It sounds like a Christmas carol is playing while you're watching the movie. But, you know, Leonard Rosenman's got some great composer cred. You know, he did Rebel Without a Cause, Fantastic Voyage, the original animated Lord of the Rings, and RoboCop 2. So not bad, but it's still like, you know, the Christmas Carol-y stuff at the beginning of Trek 4 is weird. It kind of like throws you off from that whole James Horner vibe. So, and the movie has this like, this really eco-friendly save the whales kind of message, right? It's kind of like the whales, if they don't survive, neither does the human race. Good message in there, right? But it's okay. It's not that schmaltzy, it's good. And everybody elects to go back to Earth, except they leave Saavik behind. Don't know why, maybe because we just aren't so interested in Saavik anymore. But the script originally had Saavik being pregnant with Spock's child, so she has to stay back on Vulcan to raise the kid. I guess you could get pregnant from touching fingers. I didn't know that. I didn't know Vulcans had such powerful sperm ducts in their fingertips or whatever it is. But good for you, Spock. Probably got lots of kids. Every time you shake somebody's hand, they better go get a friggin' pregnancy test, right? So we say, Saavik, this is goodbye. Admiral, I did not get the chance to tell you how bravely David met his death. He saved Spock. He saved us all. I thought you should know. I don't want to know. I don't care. He's no son of mine. Couldn't fight worth a damn. So, all right, we go to Earth to find out that Earth is being fucked up by this probe. There's this alien probe that just looks like a big log flying through space, and it sends out these signals that disrupt the oceans, and everything's going haywire on Earth, and all communications are down, and power is out, and the crew is approaching Earth. They find out all this shit is going on, and there's like the sound from the probe. They don't know what it is, and they're able to like tweak it with their audio capabilities, and Spock figures out that it's the ancient call of a humpback whale, an extinct species on Earth that went extinct Probably because all us humans kept killing them and using their blubber for things like furniture and coats and stuff. Whatever we do with whales, I don't know. I don't eat seafood, so leave me alone. All right, so we got to save the whales, but there's no whales left, so we have to attempt time travel. Spock, begin your calculations. Now just a damn minute. There's one really awesome scene I love with McCoy asking Spock after he came back from death and everything. It's like, you really have been where no man has gone before. Can you tell me what it was like? You mean I have to die to discuss your insights on death? Excuse me, Doctor. He's always pissing McCoy off. That's the beauty. The beautiful thing about Star Trek is like the Kirk, Spock, McCoy dynamic is always so great. And it's really pretty good in this movie too. And then they get thrown back into like 1980s San Francisco, which is they find there's some whales there in like this Cetacean Institute. And they gotta save these whales and bring them back to the future and stuff. And it's too bad Christopher Lloyd is gone already, right? He could have helped, right? So instead we have Catherine Hicks as his marine biologist. Gillian, whatever the fuck her name was. Alright, so she's like the love interest for Kirk. Not the sex interest, mind you, just the love interest, because Kirk's not really getting it on with anybody really in these movies. You just peck on the cheek is about as far as Kirk goes in this one. She's at this place where they got whales, and Catherine Hicks, she's an actress. She used to be on some soap operas like Ryan's Hope. She played Marilyn Monroe in 1980. She was in Child's Play in 88. She's okay, she's good in the movie. She's kind of dorky and ditzy, but that's great because it works. And at least we didn't get the originally planned actor playing this role. It was originally going to go to Eddie Murphy, and they were going to tailor this whole thing to fit Eddie Murphy. What the fuck, man? I'm doing this Star Trek stuff. No, because Eddie Murphy likes Star Trek a whole lot. Now, how Eddie Murphy would have fit into Star Trek is anybody's guess, but he would have done a lot of crap in San Francisco. He would have pull over, pull over. We couldn't have had all his racy, homophobic humor in Star Trek, with San Francisco and George Takei, We couldn't have that shit, I'm glad it didn't happen, because it would have been crazy. Joe Piscopo was like a comedian in Star Trek The Next Generation, and that's okay. But if you're going to put Axel Foley or whatever in this movie, good thing he wasn't in there. It's all right. He got to play all those other crazy movies anyway. We had, I think The Golden Child was his project instead. Good for him. Well, the whole movie is them just tooling around San Francisco, doing a lot of funny stuff, being like fish out of water kind of comedy, what does it mean, exact change? And punk dude on the bus, and, double dumbass on you! We need to find the nuclear vessels! Chekhov gets caught, and he's a Ruski. And they have these scenes about, Chekhov being a Ruski. And this was the first Star Trek movie actually shown in the Soviet Union. And the Russians really liked it, surprisingly. I don't know. The whole thing with the Chekhov in there, they weren't really portraying the U.S.-Russia relations so delicately. But hey, I'm glad they dug it, man. I'm glad they liked the shit. But yeah, the rest of Trek 4 is just, San Francisco, getting the whales, beaming them up. Admiral, there'll be whales here. It's pretty cool. They just beam the whales into a tank that they put on the ship. It's great. They fly around. I don't know how you could fly a ship with 2 whales in it. Pretty heavy, right? You have to, escape the atmosphere. But I don't know all the science stuff. And the ending is very happy again. They save the Earth. The probe talks to the whales because they come back to the future. And the probe finally gets to communicate with his whale buddies. And there's no subtitles. So for 10 minutes, we're listening to this I wish we could tell what the fuck they were saying, but I think Leonard Nimoy was dead set against any dialogue, leave it to the imagination. Or just wake me up when they start speaking fucking English again. But yeah, Trek 4 was a big success, did really well, had a couple of cool cameos in there. Did you see Jane Weedland from the Go-Go's as a captain on the ship in one scene really quick. And in keeping with the Christmas spirit of things, at the end of the movie, Kirk gets a present. A brand new Enterprise. Yeah. How about that, right? So the crew is flying through the hangar and they're looking at the ships that they might get assigned to. No one has a clue it's going to be another Enterprise, okay? I'm counting on Excelsior. Are you daft? Why'd you want that bucket of bolts? Oh, and speaking of bolts, I still got a few of them in my pocket. So they get a brand new Enterprise, NCC 1701A. I wonder what the A stands for. Probably awesome. Or perhaps arrogant. Shut up, Spock. So it was a big success, but Shatner only signed on for this film because he got more money and, bad idea, he was allowed to direct the next Star Trek movie. So, during the time that Trek 4 was in theaters, the producers and writers and stuff, everybody would say, okay, let's do some more Star Trek shit. So Star Trek The Next Generation came about in 1987. They just realized, we could do some other Trek with lesser known actors, make less money, and we can still continue it and make back a ton of money. But then, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, 1989, directed by the Shat himself. Oh boy. Alright, well, on the positive side, it had an excellent score by Jerry Goldsmith, alright? Of course, he uses his again, because, like, he has to. And Next Generation's like, they're oversaturating the place with that. But there's some really nice other music in the movie, so I don't want to say, like, it was so shitty. But there was other good music in the movie. And the opening sequence of Star Trek V is like some barren wasteland, and you see this bald dude, looks like the singer from Midnight Oil, but it's actually Rex Holman, an actor who played Morgan Earp in the 1968 Star Trek episode Spectre of the Gun, where they have the OK Corral gunfight. So that's some really cool, like, holy shit kind of casting, but most people wouldn't even know it was him. But Star Trek V, yeah, allowing William Shatner to direct and maybe come up with part of the story. Oh, he took a lot of liberties, man. First, like, you see him and McCoy and Spock, they're like camping at Yosemite National Park, and they have a campfire, and some of the dialogue and the interplay is very funny, but Kirk is climbing the mountain. Right? And he falls off, and Spock saves him with these cheap Superman special effects. I mean, I'm talking like Superman from like the black and white Superman, where there's just like somebody running in the background with a picture of the sky really fast going past him, or whatever, like a wheel with a couple of clouds painted on it, like a cylinder. I don't know, it just looks so cheap. His little rocket shoes, little rocket boots. I mean, gosh, man, it's like so cheesy looking. And he uses them in the rest of the movie too, when you have to fly up the elevator shaft. Makes Boba Fett look like freaking Tony Stark in his Iron Man suit. But anyway, that's what we got. So, some cheesy opening thing with the camping and stuff, and row your boat. It's okay. It's all right. I let it go. So anyway, we find out there's this renegade Vulcan, Sybok, played by Lawrence Luckinbill. Unfortunately, we would have gotten somebody even better to play Sybok, but he was unavailable. Sean Connery was busy shooting Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. But I'm glad he did, because that was a great freaking movie. But imagine how much better Trek V would have been if Sean Connery played a Vulcan with these pointy ears. What's going on? And it was a lot better, man, I couldn't help but notice your pain. It feels a lot like the quickening, doesn't it? It hurts. It would have been great, man, Sean Connery being in there and being psychic and stuff. But no, we don't have him. But Lawrence Luckinbill's pretty good. He played Lyndon B. Johnson, and I guess that's where Shatner saw him and said, he played a president. He must be good. I'll let him play a Vulcan, too. No emotions. And the rest of the cast is pretty much horses, because Shatner must have pulled out half of his damn stable to act in the movie. They have a lot of horse riding around these camps. It's very primitive stuff. We have this one more great actor in there, David Warner, but he's playing this real pussy of a character. He's playing Sir John Talbot. He's just some Federation ambassador, whatever it is, and he's very, very English. He's like, we forbade them weapons, they soon begin to fashion their own. But it's alright, David Warner would grow a pair later on in Trek when he'd be in the next Star Trek movie and a Next Generation episode. Very awesome, but we'll talk about him later. So it's okay, he gets his comeuppance. So you got him and a Klingon and a Romulan, and they'll get kidnapped by Sybok. And Sybok's big shit is, his whole mission is, he wants to find God. And he wants to find it in this fabled planet called Shakari, which is actually a play on Sean Connery, which we still wish we had him on the movie. Oh, so you want to find Shakari? Well, you're close. All right, so anyways, we got this search, and, Sybok manages to hijack the Enterprise and convince everybody, like, he brainwashes people to go and take the ship to the Great Barrier at the center of the universe. Just all this really bad, gooey liquid special effects. Pretty much the same shit that they used in Flash Gordon, really. And they have to go through it. No probes have ever come back, but nobody ever tried to go in. So they go in, and it's fine. Nothing happens to them. Go in, but there's all these cool scenes along the way. There's like Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are fighting in the cell because Spock kind of like betrays them and doesn't shoot Sybok. And I do not expect you to forgive me. Forgive, I don't knock you on your goddamn ass. Why, Spock? Why? All you gotta do is pull the trigger. I just love those scenes with them. It's really funny. What are you standing around for? Do you not know a jailbreak when you see one? And then, but there's a lot of stupid shit too, There's a lot of stupid shit. There's a lot of like exploitation of these characters that we really care about. Like Uhura has to go dancing naked on a hilltop to help distract some guards and they can steal the horses. That wasn't very respectful to Nichelle Nichols, but, Shatner, shame on you, man. All right, you kissed her in the 60s, but, that was enough, right? Cut it out. Sulu and Chekhov are also made fun of. Of course, Sulu's navigation skills are ridiculed as him and Chekhov get lost in the mountainside. Admit it, we're lost. All right, we're lost, but we're making good time. Hey, Pavel, would you like to make a really good time? Mr. Sulu, I like you very much, but I do not like you that way. Oh, come on, Chekhov. Just let me whisper something in your ear. No, stay away from my ears. I am still traumatized from CT Alpha 5. Go away, please. And then we have like another stupid scene where Scotty's walking down the hall like, I know this ship like the back of my hand. Boom, bumps his head and gets knocked out cold. What a fucking idiot. This is all Shatner's fault, man. He just takes everybody and puts them into a slapstick idiot movie. And this almost killed the Star Trek movie franchise, I gotta tell you. Like, you know this, right? Because it's terrible. A lot of bad shit. It could have been a little better. You know, Sean Connery for one. And in the ending, when they finally get to God, which ain't really God, but it's like a hologram, this glowing in the dark kind of face guy in the middle of this temple of rocks. But he's cool because this dude is played by George Murdoch. And George Murdoch was a doctor on Battlestar Galactica TV series, and later on he played an admiral in Star Trek. He was on, in 1990 he was on Next Generation. So yeah, you know, there's like more Star Trek connections, but you know, excuse me, I'd like to ask a question. What does God need with a starship? Jim, you don't ask the Almighty for his ID. Then here's the proof you seek. Starts electrocuting like, why is God angry? A lot of cool shit at the end, I like that. You didn't answer his question. What does God need with a starship? Zap Spock. Do you doubt me too? And then DeForest Kelly brings it, man. I doubt any God who inflicts pain for his own pleasure. Now, D. Kelly was really great in this movie. There's really one excellent scene where Sybok is like showing them their past and their inner pain, and Spock is pissed off because his daddy says, so human. When he's born, he hates his half-human heritage. He shows McCoy when his father's on a deathbed and McCoy has to just euthanize him, but he could have saved him. I found a cure. I got him cured. Like right after that, he found a cure. So it's torturing him, and he wants to show Kirk his pain. I know what my weaknesses are. I don't need Sybok to give me a totem. I don't want my pain taken away. I need my pain. Yes, Shat, you need your pain. Your pain is you cannot complete a sentence without pausing and emphasizing the wrong syllables. It's alright, we get to the end of the movie, and we find out that this God is just a hoax. He's just like some malevolent creature, entity that's trapped there, and he wants to bond with the ship. It's really good, and Sybok has to sacrifice himself in his big special effect thing, and everyone gets away, and this God thing is still trying to chase Kirk up the mountain. And it would have been a really cool ending if they had the money for it. There was supposed to be these demons and angels and all this shit, and then there was supposed to be these rock guys, these like rock creatures. They had to be made out of rubber, or maybe rock. Rubber that looks like rock, and there was supposed to be 6 of them, but then the budget got cut. There's only 1 of them, and they shot a screen test for it, and it's horrible, and you can watch it on the extra features of the DVD. So anyway, there's no rock creatures and nothing. It's just Kirk running up the mountain. This little hologram god face is chasing him, and the Klingons beam him up, and everything's good at the end, even though this one Klingon dude is trying to kill him for the whole movie. He's like, oh, Kirk, if I could defeat Kirk, I would be the greatest warrior. Just translate that to Klingon, because I don't know. I don't know how to speak the shit. But every Klingon out there wants to face Kirk, because he's like the ultimate badass. So right at the end of Star Trek V, there's like this little cocktail party, and you know David Warner is trying to hook up with this hot Romulan chick, and it's okay. And they're looking at the Great Barrier and blah blah blah. And they go back to the camp and they sing "Row Row Your Boat" again, and it's okay. It's not my favorite Trek, but you know, for the comic relief that it provides, which is pretty much the entire movie, it's very entertaining. It's very good. But now, let's talk about a good Star Trek for once, all right? Finally, yes. Yeah. The final film featuring the entire original classic crew came in 1991, and that would be Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. This sort of had a Cold War, Berlin Wall kind of political theme about, like, you know, Chernobyl and tolerance of this society now has to, like, find a new way to adapt and integrate with the human race. Much more dramatic, darker, better written, better acted, everything. And the score, in this one, another new composer comes along. We got Cliff Eidelman, only 26 years old, but he composed a really great score for this movie. And he'd only done like ballets and a few other movies and shit. Like, I'm imagining, like, wow, this guy's really kicking ass with this. Very dramatic. I like it a lot. It helps the film. Now, when Trek 6 was being developed and the screenplay was being written, they had some consultations with Gene Roddenberry, who was not really well at the time, and Nicholas Meyer was on board to direct again, because we figured, hey, if you didn't fuck up Star Trek 2, let's bring you back to make up for that Shatner debacle, right? And then Roddenberry didn't like all the bigotry and stuff, and, the bad Savick. There was supposed to be a plot where Savick betrays the Federation, and instead of Savick, we got a different character to do that. But they pretty much ignored almost everything Roddenberry wanted, and sadly, he got to screen an early cut of the film and just died like 48 hours later. So, the film is dedicated to Gene Roddenberry, even if he doesn't like it. But, it was a great tribute to him and Star Trek. But I think this is a great fucking Star Trek movie, honestly. It's one of the best ones, and maybe better than Wrath of Khan. Just like, because it's not as old, and I haven't seen it as many times, but It's pretty smooth, solid, quick pace, everything. It opens up really great. Like after the credits start in the beginning, the first thing you get is boom, a big friggin' explosion in space and these two purple rings flying out. It's kind of like Mace Windu just blew up a pair of Death Stars, something like that kind of special effect. You've seen it before. And we have Captain Sulu at the Excelsior. Yeah, he ends up with the shitty ship, right? He's not even with the crew anymore, so they must have kicked him out. But he gets the shitty ship that nobody likes. And he realizes, that Praxis was like the Klingons' prime energy source, and their whole empire is going to fall because of that. Do we report this? Are you kidding? An incident. Takei is really acting in this movie. It's great. So we find the crew is in a Starfleet meeting, and they find out that the Klingon Empire is dying, and now we have this, we have to meet up with their chancellor and escort them to Earth and have this peace talk bullshit that Spock set up, and Kirk's after the meeting, you know how I feel about this. They're animals. They're dying. Let them die. So Kirk is very bigoted about Klingons. He doesn't like them because, hey, they offed his son first, Besides the fact that they've been fighting for 40 years, they killed his son too. So that kind of sucks. All right, so we have a new crew member on the ship. When we get to the Enterprise, we got Lieutenant Valeris, who's a Vulcan with a nice buzzed hairdo, played by Kim Cattrall. Of course, it's Samantha, right? You know her. Now, she had originally, in the past, auditioned for Saavik, but she didn't want to be the third actress to play Saavik. So they come up with Lieutenant Valeris, which is cool. She's a Vulcan. Kim Cattrall was in a lot of shit back then. She used to be on some TV shit, like in the 70s. She was on the Logan's Run TV show. She was on The Incredible Hulk. And then her film career started off a little bit questionably, Porky's, Police Academy. But then got a little better. Big Trouble in Little China. So how was she selected to play a Vulcan? Well, hey, she did play a mannequin, right? Doesn't require that much emotional range, so maybe that was part of the choice. But then there was some controversy, too. There was a photo shoot where Kim Cattrall was on the bridge set of the Enterprise. Just, very empty set, but she was there being photographed completely naked, wearing only her freaking pointy ears. And Leonard Nimoy found out about this shit, ripped off the pictures, and pissed off that she would have caused some really horrible bad press for Star Trek. I don't know. I personally thought those pictures would have been great, lobby cards or something. That was not released, I guess. Sex in the Starfleet, whatever that was meant to be, it never happened. Nimoy must have been really pissed at her, because later on, there's a scene where he slaps the gun out of her hand. It's like really, look at his face, man. He looks like he just wants to slap her. It's great when he's mind melding her. Why do you want to disgrace and desecrate Star Trek? Why would you desecrate the captain's chair? It's not logical. Something like that. All right, so they have the meeting. There's a peace mission, and Kirk doesn't want to do this shit. In his captain's log, it says, I've never trusted Klingons, and I never will. I can never forgive them for the death of my boy. And Valeris is standing at the door. And later on, we're going to find out that his captain's log was being recorded. They're still bootlegging, even in the 23rd century. So we have Chancellor Gorkon, played by David Warner. Now, this is a better role for our buddy David Warner. They make him up to look a little bit like Abraham Lincoln as a Klingon, so maybe we trust him a bit. And he'd work with Nicholas Meyer on Nick Meyer's first film in 1979, Time After Time. David Warner is great. He's been in so many damn great things, and except for that last Star Trek he was in before. Later on he plays Gul Madred in Star Trek The Next Generation, 1992, an excellent episode. He's a Cardassian. This Chancellor Gorkon role was originally offered to Jack Palance. So, he might not have been quite as trustworthy. I don't know. Jack Palance is like a wily, devilish kind of guy, when he hears the Federation wants to have a peace treaty with the Klingons. Son of a bitch. So you want to have a treaty with us? You want to let us onto your planet? I think we can still make peace today. Day ain't over yet. Something like that. Kill any humans today? Day ain't over yet. Oh, and another amazing actor we have, let's not even forget, Christopher Plummer. Yes, Christopher Plummer, the legend, man. He performed with Shatner in Montreal. I guess at least one of them was acting. We were doing it well. All right, so, got Chris Plummer way back, into 1965, Sound of Music, 1979, Star Crash. All right, that might have been a mistake, but at least he made up for it with Star Trek. 1984, Dreamscape. He kills Max von Sydow. In 1995, 12 Monkeys. And 2000, Dracula 2000. See what I did there? Till now, last year, 2019, he was in Knives Out. He's still kicking it, man. He's awesome. But his character leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, most of his dialogue is just like fucking quoting Shakespeare. It's very annoying. Every other thing he says is like, have we not heard the chimes at midnight? Oh, parting such sweet sorrow, eh, Captain? You save that shit for Picard. Maybe him and Picard could have a little chat about how much they love the Bard. Kirk hasn't got time for Shakespeare, man. Kirk would just be too busy chasing green ass across the universe. He doesn't need this crap. Doesn't read. Christopher Plummer is General Chang. He gets onto the transporter room and he finally sees Kirk. I have so wanted to meet you, Captain. I'm not sure how to take that. Sincere admiration, Kirk. From one warrior to another. Right. Oh, I remember you. Yeah, you were in the musical with Mary Poppins, weren't you? Tough guy, aren't you? Yeah, it's okay. Fucking Christopher Plummer. He plumbs the Enterprise pretty good, too. He backs up their fucking septic tank later on in the movie. Anyway, he's great. They have a dinner scene. They're drinking Romulan ale and they're talking about Shakespeare and Klingon, dumb shit. Tell me, Captain, would you be willing to give up Starfleet? And they start getting on each other's nerves, and Gorkon's like, I see we have a long way to go. And then they leave, and then after that, all hell starts breaking loose, man. Somebody torpedoes the Klingon ship, and we think it's the Enterprise, and Kirk and McCoy go over to try to save the Chancellor, because there's his assassins on board, and they're zapping the Klingons, and the gravity goes out, and all this purple blood is floating around, and we basically lose Chancellor Gorkon. Don't let it end this way, Captain. McCoy tries to save him, but he doesn't know Klingon anatomy. He doesn't do that. It doesn't really work this time, like it usually does in Star Trek. His little tricorder thingy. Kirk and McCoy, they get arrested. Under the articles of your interstellar law, I'm placing you under arrest. So they're under arrest, and the president of the Federation, who doesn't do jack shit, is played by Kurtwood Smith. Of course, you remember him. He was in RoboCop, man. He was Clarence Boddicker. He's in that 70s show. We have Admiral Cartwright, Brock Peters in there. He's great. He also played Joseph Sisko in Deep Space Nine. We have a lot of cool people in Star Trek doing other Star Trek stuff later on. They come up with this rescue plan, right? We have Colonel West. In the deleted scenes that end up later on the director's cut, you'll see Colonel West is played by René Auberjonois. And if you listen to his crotchety voice, you'll know that he plays Odo on Deep Space Nine later on. So he has his rescue plan. All right, we can go in, and we can get... And we have this map here, we can go right to the island. All right, that's all very good. I'll review it later. I have a presidential conference now. Thank you very much. It sucks. You should just say, bitches, leave. And then get everybody out of his damn presidential suite. So, all right, that was the little cool Odo scene there. And then we have the trial. So the trial takes place in this huge arena, and to keep the production costs down, it was built in miniature. And instead of having like a whole bunch of extras in costume and makeup, an overhead shot was done with 200 Worf action figures, all like linked up with these little tiny light bulbs and toothpicks for their staffs. It's pretty cool, right? Looks good anyway. And we have another Star Trek, or soon to be in Star Trek guy in this. We have Michael Dorn as their Klingon defense attorney at the trial, and he sucks. He's lousy. He can't do nothing, man. He's like, every time there's like a counter accusation, he's like, or perhaps they merely wore Starfleet uniforms. That remark is purely speculative, and I move that it be stricken. Christopher Plummer is kicking the shit out of him at this trial. Or if the gravity was out, how could these men be walking? He's like, has no good fucking material. He has no evidence, nothing. Everything's like all speculation. Plummer's like talking about McCoy. I believe we all drank rather copious amounts of Romulan ale on the night in question, didn't we, Doctor? We all drank. Were you intoxicated? I was nervous. No, you were incompetent. You're incompetent! He's like, he's taking off his coat. You're incompetent! Whether it's my combination of age or alcohol, you're in for the jury to decide. And he's kicking ass in his trial, and the best part of all is like, and now we come to the architect of this crime, James Tiberius Kirk. What would your favorite author say, Kirk? Let us sit on the ground and tell our sad stories. All right, enough of this Shakespeare shit. And they have a translation thingy. Kirk's talking to the Klingons, and be very careful. You intended to take revenge on the death of your son. He gets really cranked up and shit. Do you deny being demented for these translations? Don't wait for the translation. Answer me now. On occasion, I have disobeyed commands. Insubordination. Shatner's just Shatner. He can't like really match the level of Plummer. I can't believe they acted together. I mean, maybe Shatner played a piece of the scenery. I don't really know. And then Plummer chewed him. But anyway, that scene is awesome. And then the judge is like this. It is the judgment of this court. The defendants are guilty as charged. He sort of sounds like Palpatine with a sore throat. Without possibility of parole, you'll be taken to the penal asteroid of Lurapense, there to spend the rest of your natural lives. Good, the hate is swelling in you now. No, he doesn't say that. So they're going to get taken to this penal asteroid with his penises, I guess, or whatever, penises go into asteroids. And then they have to go into this, work camp. It's on this ice planet. Luckily, Spock stuck this little tracer patch on his shoulder when he left the Enterprise. Otherwise, we'd never know where the hell they are. So they go into this thing. Underground, it's like a gulag, and then there's all these mean aliens that want to fight with him. But of course, while he's down there, he runs into Iman, David Bowie's wife, beautiful model Iman, wearing feathers for her hair. You want to get out of here? You're the best candidate to come along in weeks. Candidate for what? Oh, yeah, that. What is it with you anyway? Yeah, Kirk's got to get some before he leaves this movie, or before he leaves the franchise. So he's getting on with Bowie's wife. Only later on, she's not Bowie's wife anymore. She's this big hairy beast thing. I mean, I know Bowie was into some crazy shit, but really, this she's nuts, man. She turns to this little girl, turns to this giant ape, and then later on, she turns into Kirk. I can't believe I kissed you. Must have been your lifelong ambition. And they fight. They don't know which Kirk is which, and it's really a setup to get them killed. Killed while trying to escape. Why? Who's behind it? Since you're all going to die anyway, why not tell you? His name is... Oh, goddamn. He get beamed up before he finds out who's really behind the shit. But we learn who's behind the shit. Because on the Enterprise, they're having like this mystery investigation, but something's still not right. Something is still afoot, as Sherlock Holmes would say, or Data. So we have to figure out what's up. And the way to flush out the real assassin who's still there is to pretend that these two assassin guys aren't really dead yet. And they're going to get a statement taken from them in sickbay. And when they flick on the lights and they see who's about to kill these guys for the second time, it's Valeris. It's Kim Cattrall. You traitorous bitch. And Spock does that, slap the phaser out of her hand. Got any more of those pictures? Give them up right now. If you are logical, you must shoot. So anyway, they interrogate her, they mind meld her ass, and they find out what's going on, and they empty her head. They find out what's going to happen in the next Sex and the City episode. So they go to the Camp Kittimer, and there's this assassination thing about to happen, and Sulu's coming to help, because Christian Slater shows up and wakes him up. Excuse me, sir. Oh my. You were in Heathers, weren't you? Yes, sir. Starfleet's on the horn and trying to find out if we have any information about the Enterprise. Tell Starfleet. I have no idea. Location Enterprise. Okay, sir. Just one other thing. While you're napping, is it all right if I sit in the captain's chair? Thanks. Phew. Yeah, because Christian Slater was like a big Trekkie. He was so happy to be in this movie for all of 1 minute. And meanwhile, Chang there, Christopher Plummer, is like sneaking up with his cloaked bird of prey and taking a lot of shots at the Enterprise. And every time he hits the Enterprise, cry havoc! I am as constant as a northern star. I'd give real money if he'd shut up. It's like every single line of Shakespeare has to be accompanied by a torpedo hit. And they're getting so mad because they can't find a damn ship. Let's listen to where all the fucking Shakespeare's coming from. Ho, Horatio! I knew him. Can't find the bastard, so they have to use his heat-seeking missile. Of course, his final words are, to be, or not to be. In your face, Chang! Tell me, was that one of your favorite things? Alright, Jim, that wasn't very funny. So they finally get to the thing, and they stop the assassination that's about to happen. This Klingon is about to blast the Federation president. Kirk saves him in the nick of time. Mr. President, Mr. President. They might as well shoot Kirk. It looks like he's a madman about to do the assassination. But then he tackles the president. Kirk, Enterprise. That's like, you know who you are. I watch Star Trek. And then Scotty goes up and zaps the assassin. Goes through the glass, lands on the floor. And unless you watch the extended cut, you don't know. Worf walks up to him. This is not Klingon blood. And he peel his mask off, and it's Odo. Or maybe it's not, because he's Odo. He could look like anything, right? So at the end of this Star Trek, all the crew walks down the aisle together, like they're all getting married. You get this nice music. Sulu shows up and puts his gun down. Like, yeah, you get a little action in there. And they say goodbye to Sulu. Nice to see you in action one more time, Captain Kirk. Goodbye, Sulu. You still can't steer. You still got your blinkers on when you're turning to the left of a star. So this is goodbye. And it's supposed to turn into the Enterprise to be decommissioned and retire and like all go into a nursing home. And it sucks. Nobody wants to go. And Spock's like, if I were human, I believe my response would be, go to hell. Well, if this movie was rated R, our response would be, go. Fuck yourself. Second star to the right, straight on till morning. So we go into space, and this ship and its legacy will soon become the care of a new crew and new generation. And they will continue all the missions we started and boldly go, but not have as much sex. And their captain will be bald. And the first officer will be a toaster. But you'll like them, but you won't like them as much as us. And the captain will not be able to fight worth a damn. Trust me, you'll see. So they go into the sunset, and then all the autographs of the cast appear on the screen and fly off into the distance. It's really nice. And then the very last one with this really suspenseful music is William Shatner. Oh, wow. That took me completely by surprise. So as these autographs are appearing, and when Shatner's is coming up, I was kind of like wondering, does he sign his name the same way he speaks? I'm expecting like the words to start getting scribbled and then stop like right in the middle, like Will, Shatner. But yeah, he can write well. Or maybe they just fixed it in post. Who knows? It's very smooth. He writes his name. It floats off and yay, goodbye to the original crew. But it's very exciting, and then you see the credits. It's a beautiful send-off, man, to the classic crew, and a great movie. When it came out on video, there were actually some extra scenes added in, Nicholas Meyer put in. Some of them, like, maybe work, and some don't, like, the Colonel West thing with Odo. There's a couple little extra Scotty things, like there's a part where they find out that the daughter was named Chancellor. Like, I bet that Klingon bitch killed her father. That sounded a little bit racist of Scotty to say that shit, so I guess they took it out. It's not a good, don't say that, up your shaft is much more politically correct, because it could be anybody's shaft. But there's a great Scotty exchange with Spock that's still in the movie, and I love it. It's great. It's just like a typical Star Trek humor thing where they can't go back to Starfleet or else the assassins will escape and all the evidence will be missing and hidden. Mr. Scott, I understand we're having trouble with the warp drive. How much time until it's repaired? There's nothing wrong with the bloody thing. Mr. Scott, if we return to Starbase, the assassins will escape. Could be weeks, sir. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Very funny Star Trek moment that I love a lot. Some cool stuff, like right before this movie came out, 91, just about like a month before Trek 6 was in theaters, Leonard Nimoy appeared on Star Trek The Next Generation in the 2-part episode Unification, which is really awesome. And it had Sarek in there too, and, it's just like a great way to see Spock. He's older, and, his character is in a different place, of course, than he is in the Trek, but I guess it was like a little advanced publicity to rally people up and get them excited about a new Star Trek movie after seeing Star Trek V. So that might have helped. And in 1996, the Star Trek Voyager show had a great episode called Flashback, which includes some scenes with Sulu and Janice Rand. You got George Takei, Grace Lee Whitney, and it's all because of a flashback. And you get to see these characters again and some of the connecting storyline with Trek 6. And Camp Khitomer always pops up in some episode here or there, or the Khitomer Accords, whenever there's anything political or there's a campfire or whatever. But that's about it, man. I think I've spent plenty of time on Star Trek now, I'm not a Vulcan, I don't have the rest of the time here. So let me sign off and thank you all for listening to Missing Real. I hope you loved it and you'll keep on listening and loving it. And I will bid you farewell in the best, most appropriate way I know how. Live long and podcast. Something like that, right? Yeah, I'm trying to do the Vulcan salute. I'm not sure I could do it, but I do know some other hand gestures that speak volumes as well. So whichever you prefer, until next time, Qapla' and engage. Shit, wrong captain.
Commencing countdown. Engines on. 3, 2, check ignition. And may God's love be with you. Lift off. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade. And the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule, if you dare. This is Major Tom, ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way. And the stars look very different today. For here am I sitting in a tin can, far above the world. Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing I can do.